So this car market has been very, very destructive for a business like mine, and not necessarily from the sales side or us actually making money, but the idea of what I want to have for my business. See, I've started this business out. I'm a used car dealer, being able to sell cars that are $5,000 and under. And this market has made it very, very, very difficult. And we'll talk about that a little bit today. I'm also going to show you the cars that we've bought in the last week, show you what we paid for them, show you what we're going to sell them for, and talk a little bit about that. And also, this show today is being sponsored by Incogni, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But what I really want to talk about in this car market and why it's so difficult for me to operate is because I do operate in this niche where we're trying to serve a customer base that doesn't want to go into debt for a car, that wants a simple A to B car, that they can pay cash for, and they can do it quickly, and they can just be on their way. We look at like 2005 Toyota Camrys that have like 175,000 miles, something that we can buy for around $2,500 to $3,000 in this market, and then sell and make roughly, on average, we'll make about $1,200 per car. That's the niche I like to be in. Now, right now, our sweet spot for selling cars to that customer base is somewhere between like $3,500 and $4,000, but that's not what it used to be. And this is the topic that I want to talk about with what we've experienced over the last 3 or 4 years, the inflation that's hit my business and has hit my consumer, because the cars that we sell now for $3,500, $4,000, we used to be able to sell those same cars for $2,000, $2,500. And that's a massive difference in what these consumers are having to buy. And what we have paid for them at the auctions is that these cars that we used to buy, we used to be able to buy them for $800 to $1,200 and then retail them for $2,500. And $2,500 was our sweet spot. There were even many cases where we wouldn't have a car on our lot that was over $2,500, and I would have 40, 50 cars and not one of them over $2,500. And this has not been that long ago. 5 years, 5.5 years ago, we were able to do this. We were also able to have a ton of cars on our lot that we were selling for $1,500. And this was $1,500 cash. And the only thing extra that the customer was going to have to pay was their taxes and registration fee through our state. And that just doesn't exist anymore. And these $1,500 cars that we were able to sell, we were able to buy them at auctions for $500-$600. And if you're buying a car at auction right now for $500-$600, that car does not run. And we used to be able to buy cars that would run and drive well and actually pass inspection. We could buy like a 2002 Ford Explorer with 180,000 miles. If it just falls through the cracks, because there were so many cars available at these auctions, we would pay $600, $700, $800 for it and be able to sell it for under $2,000. It's crazy to think that that world existed 5, 6 years ago, and it's a world that I miss greatly. And the reason why it's changed so drastically is not only because of inflation; it's because of production that has not been there over the last few years. And you're saying, well, I mean, new cars, why does that have any effect on what I'm buying at these auctions, especially like a $700 or $800 car? Well, the used car market is tied so heavily to the new car market. And what's happened since the production has gotten hit so hard on these new car manufacturers over the last 3 years, hitting the new car dealers, it's forced the sales, the amount of sales that are moving through these dealerships have greatly decreased over the years as far as how many deals they're doing. And that means fewer trade-ins. That's fewer trade-ins that can go to these auctions. And when you have these fewer trade-ins that are hitting these auctions, it inflates the price of these used vehicles. We'll not even talk about all the money that was put into the system that caused a lot of this inflation. Take all of that out. Just the sheer amount of vehicles that were pulled out of the system over the last few years have pulled these trade-ins out of the system. And that's what has really ruined a business like ours, and why we can't operate in the way that we used to. Like I was saying, the sweet spot that we used to have 4 or 5 years ago was $2,500. That's what we would be able to sell cars for. Now that has popped up to $3,500, $4,000. And it's interesting. My wife, she's in the chat, and she's on the mic too. She pulled up something interesting as far as how much more we have in our cars now, even just compared to what was it last year, baby? That we had, I think, 20% more in our cars right now. But she has that number. What was it?
You're actually off. So let me fix it. And I've got better information to you now. We're actually have 16% less in our cars now than we did last year on the average per car, but it's still 50% higher than it was at this time in 2020.
Wow. So 50% since 2020. That's insane. That's a per car basis. So this is showing you how much more we have to pay now as opposed to what we paid in 2020. And she was absolutely right as far as me being wrong, because prices have coming down since last year. We had higher inflation as far as used cars go last year than we do this year. But just from that 2020 standpoint to right now, 50% more that we have to pay. And that's really, it's messing up the model that we want to have, because we want to be able to provide a vehicle for our customer that is a everyday vehicle that they can spend $1,500 on and be able to just go. And that just, it doesn't exist anymore. And we really miss the time frame of when we could actually buy and sell cars for that. And I don't see this getting any better anytime soon. So we've adjusted our models. We've adjusted really how we are running our business. And because times are tighter, we are actually in a smaller gap of cars that we can buy. Back then, when we were buying cars that we could sell for $1,500, we could buy cars that are $600-700, but we could also go all the way up to the range of cars that we were paying $3,500 for, because we could get it under that $5,000 price point. And there were a lot of cars that were available in that range, but now our range has been pushed down because those $700-800 cars, they don't run, and we don't want to buy those that we have to put a motor, a transmission in, tons of money into, because at the end of the day, when we put all that money into the car, we're not going to get it to that price point where we can actually make money and still get it to our consumer to where they can buy it for that price point. So we end up going above that limit, that price point that we used to be able to buy at these auctions, to even just get a halfway decent car. So we're pushed into, it's very rare that we can buy a car for under like $1,500 that is still good enough for us to sell to our consumers. So we're pushed for our sweet spot at auctions is like $1,500 to $3,000 now, and that's greatly pushing down the amount of cars that we can buy. We can even look at these auctions, and we're in an environment where there are fewer cars for us to look at anyway. So we used to be able to go to 2 auctions a week and service the amount of inventory that we needed. We could, back in 2019, 2020, before all the craziness started, we were able to do 70, 80, 90 cars a month and only service all that inventory out of 2 auctions. Now, if we want to do that kind of volume, we're hitting 3, 4 auctions a week to be able to turn that amount of cars. So it's very difficult. It's something that we're going to continue to have to move with the market, and hopefully, as these manufacturers lower some MSRPs, as these dealers get more negotiable and they sell more vehicles, the used car market's going to get better on the auction side for us. So that's what we're looking forward to. But anyway, I've got cars here that we bought over the last week. I'm going to tell you all about those in just a minute. But today I want to thank our sponsor, Incogni. This is your reliable partner for anonymous browsing. Incogni isn't just another privacy tool. It's your shield against digital surveillance, ensuring your online activities remain truly private. Think of it as your cloak of invisibility, keeping your browsing habits hidden from prying eyes, trackers, and data brokers. With Incogni, you can finally reclaim your online invisibility and browse without leaving a digital footprint behind. But what makes Incogni stand out is its simplicity. Whether you're a tech enthusiast or a casual user, Incogni's seamless integration into your browsing experience makes it effortless to stay incognito. Plus, with Surfshark's clean web feature built right in, you can say goodbye to intrusive ads and trackers, ensuring a smoother, distraction-free browsing experience. Don't let your online privacy be compromised any longer. Take control with Incogni by Surfshark and browse the web with confidence, knowing that your privacy is always protected. Use code CQA Live at the link below and get 60% off an annual plan. And I want to thank again Incogni for sponsoring this live stream today. So let's get into some of the cars. I know you guys always like to hear what we're buying, what we're selling them for. But we bought a 2003 Toyota Highlander. It's got 185,000 miles. We paid $2,000 for it. I thought this was actually a good deal. Alex, my mechanic, goes and buys a lot of these cars at the auction because he can know what he has to do to them, what he's going to end up paying to fix them. And for this one, the reason why we were able to get such a good deal on it, I think, is because it had a check engine light on it, but we're able to scan them while we're there and know what we have to fix on it. That one just had an O2 sensor problem, so we can fix that, no problem. Sensor 60, 70, 75 bucks, somewhere around there. And the fee was $285. And all of these are going to have fees, but I'm just going to tell you what we actually paid at auction. So just know you have to factor in a buyer fee whenever I'm telling you all of these prices. But pay $2,000 for it. Going to have a little bit of repair work to do on it, but probably going to end up being $3,500 unless it's more than just an O2 sensor. But most likely, right around that $3,500, $4,000 price point is what we're going to sell it for. We bought a 2005 a 2005 Chrysler Town and Country for $2,000. Again, a $3,500 car. A 2006 Honda Civic. Again, $2,000. I guess the 2,000 price point was where we were at the auctions that week, last week. And that's another $3,500 car. We bought a 2009 Mitsubishi Galant. We don't typically like buying Mitsubishis. There are a few Mitsubishis you can buy and get away with that are halfway decent cars. The Galant is one, and the Lancer. The Lancer are also pretty good too, so we don't mind buying those. Pay $2,400 for it. It'll be a $3,500, $4,000 car for us. And the Galants, they seem to sell really well. I don't know if it's just the way they look. They're a good four-door sedan. But yeah, I actually don't mind the Galants at all. Most Mitsubishi products, though, we will be avoiding. We bought a 2011 Ford Fiesta. It's got 180,000 miles, so not bad for the typical mileage that we buy. We paid $2,300 for it. Be a $3,500 car. And a 2013 Buick Enclave. That's typically newer than what we would buy from the cars that we have to sell in our price range. But we paid $2,100 for it. And if you have any questions while I'm going through this, throw them in chat. As soon as I'm done with this list, we'll answer some of the questions that are popping up. We bought a 2003 Honda Pilot. We love Pilots. Pilots are fantastic cars. Even with really high mileage, they will last for a very long time. Paid $1,800 for it. It'll be a $3,500 car. We bought a 2006 Toyota Sienna. Love Siennas. In fact, we're possibly thinking about buying my wife one in the near future. But we buy them as much as we can. As anytime we see a Sienna at the auction lot, we're checking it out. We're trying to buy it. We only paid $1,300 for this one. It'll be $2,500, $3,000, and somebody will probably get a very good deal on that car. Hopefully, we won't have to fix anything on it, but that was a good deal. And 2009 Acura RDX, paid $2,300 for it. Be a $3,500, $4,000 car on our lot. I know you guys like hearing what we're buying, so let's go to the chat now. What questions do we have? I think my wife was pulling some out, and she's not paying attention, so. There we go.
I was just on mute and I was clicking on too many things.
No problem.
I got you. It took 2 seconds to get that question up. When you buy a car at auction and it ends up in worse condition than you thought, do you dump it back at the auction to get your money back, or do you expect to make a profit?
It depends. It depends on how bad it ends up being. So what is typical for us to find as an unexpected expense that maybe we couldn't recognize at the auction is something like a bad motor. Now you can hear motors ticking, knocking, or whatever, but if it's a head gasket that has just recently gone bad, you might not be able to see it in the oil. So that's something that can slip by what we're checking before we're actually buying the car. Or the transmission. Transmission can slip by us because some cars don't throw transmission codes. We have scanners that we scan the car, and most makes and models, if the transmission is bad, it will send us back a faulty transmission code, whether it's the synchros that are out or the solenoids. Something's wrong with it. Usually we can catch that, but sometimes it's not that easy and it slips by. So what do we do in those cases? We have to do basically a cost analysis at that point, where we say, okay, we've got X amount in this car. So we got $2,000 in this car. We think we can sell it for $3,500, maybe $4,000. But the transmission's bad, and we check the transmission shop. It's going to cost us $1,400. So at that point, we know that we're going to have at least $3,400 in that car. But let's say it's only a 35. We know we can't sell it for $4,000. It's only $3,500. At that point, we'll probably just fix the transmission, because if we dump it back to auction, even though it saves us the time that we don't want to spend on that car that we're not going to make any money on, when we dump it back to auction, we're not going to get the same amount back that we bid on. So we're an independent dealer, and cars that are sold through independent dealers at auction bring a whole lot less than franchise cars do, because every other used car dealer that's at the auction knows the same thing that I know. And that's that a trade-in is a much better car than something getting dumped at auction from an independent dealer, because there's some reason why that independent dealer couldn't sell it on their lot. Whether in this case it was a car that needed a motor or transmission, and I'm dumping it because I don't want to deal with it, or it's just an undesirable car. They couldn't sell it. They need to get off their floor plan. Whatever it was, if it was a desirable car, they could sell it. It was a good car. They wouldn't be sending it to auction. So that's the reason why I say every other used car dealer that's at the auction knows the same thing that I do. That's why independent dealers, their cars bring almost nothing. So that car that we paid $2,000 for, if I run it right back through the auction next week, even if it was a perfect car, that car is only going to bring like $700-800. That's just the way it goes. That's how it works. So we have to break down and say, okay, how much do I think it's going to bring an auction? In that case, we're going to lose $1,200. And then on if we replace the transmission, it's going to we're going to make $100, hopefully, or break even. And in that case, obviously, we replace the transmission. Now we get into certain points where maybe we paid too much for a car to begin with, and the transmission is going to cost more than what transmissions regularly do. All these transmissions for these different cars cost different amounts. So it could be the standpoint, well, okay, we paid $2,500 for this car, but it's probably only a $2,000 car that we should have paid for at auction. So we're already in at $500 more than we should have been. And then the transmission costs $2,000 instead of like a $1,500 transmission that we would typically buy. So that car, we're going to be in it $4,500, but then we say to ourselves, okay, well, this is only a $3,000 car. We paid too much for it, and we're going to have $4,000 in it, but we can only sell it for $3,000. We're going to lose $1,000. But if we dump it back to the auction, it's only going to bring $1,000. So we might lose $1,500. And if we fix the transmission, we'll lose $1,000. But then you have to factor in the time, whatever. So net, obviously, you're going to lose less money if you fix that transmission, but you have to factor in time too. I mean, I'm a business, and we have a small team, so that time that's used in dealing with that car, transport it, whatever we need. If we have to haul it somewhere as opposed to being able to drive it, we have to factor all these things in. So in that case, in that second example, we would probably end up just dumping it back to the auction. Because when you fix something like a transmission, there's also a gamble that you're going into this car, because there's probably some other stuff that you're going to have to fix if you get it back to the lot and you're not really even able to drive it because the transmission, the motor is bad or whatever. So after we get that transmission or that motor fixed and then we start driving it, we might find 3 other problems wrong with it. So every scenario, I wish we had a rule just governing that would just work with every situation, but it's not the case. What we have to literally do a breakdown, a price analysis every single time that we run into these situations. Thankfully, Alex and myself we're pretty good buyers at the auction. We can pick up stuff, pick out stuff that we shouldn't buy pretty easily. So we avoid it. So it's a very rare situation where we have to stand around our war board over there showing what's wrong with cars and have a discussion about, okay, we got this much in the car. It's going to cost us this much to fix it. How much do you think we can get at auction? And how much do you think we can sell it for? But we have to have those discussions whenever we run into one of these situations. All right. Next one.
What happens when there are no used cars to buy?
That's a difficult question to ask because I don't think there's ever going to be a situation when there are no used cars to buy. But I can talk about when there are like a lot fewer cars for us to buy. We're going through that situation right now. And what happens is we expand our range. So we'll maybe spend more. We'll buy a car that's really a little bit out of our range and just make less money on it to get it under our price point. Or we'll take more gambles. That's the situation I hate. But over the last 3 years, we've had to gamble more on cars, and it ends up that our loss rates have ticked up, but we're still. Oh, last time I checked, we just pulled these numbers for Alex, but I think we're at like 6 or 7% loss rate. But I like to be under 5%. That's the number that I like to hit, and gambling more. That means we're taking more losses than I would like to. But that's just what you have to do. If you want cars, you got to buy what's there, and what's here right now is not a lot of good used cars. So that's where we're at right now. All right, I got time for one more.
One more. 1 second. Let's see. What cars do you always avoid? Like, the car will break or has very poor build quality.
My wife knows the answer to this one. Volkswagen. I will not buy a Volkswagen. We bought a lot of the older Volkswagens in the past, the Jettas, the Passats. But it seems like every Volkswagen that we've ever bought that we can buy in our range, those years, those miles that we're going to be able to buy, every one of their rear main seals is leaking, or they have some kind of significant oil leak from somewhere. I don't know if the seals were just bad that they put in these vehicles, the gaskets that they're put, they're just awful. So I just stay away. I don't even look at them. Also there's a lot of transmission issues with the Jettas, but just that's probably my number two. My number one, that's just overall brand, but my number one car I won't buy is a 2002 to 2006 Nissan Altima that has a 6-cylinder motor. And then, you know what, you could even throw in the 2007 and up Altimas that have the CVT transmissions. We won't buy those either. Those are probably even more of a stay away from than the Volkswagens because they're just, those transmissions were trash. The V6 motors were trash. And then the CVT transmissions, when you get into the mileage that I'm looking at, were trash. So those, that's all the trash and the stuff that I don't want to have to deal with. And it seems like every one we've bought of those is like a coin flip, whether or not it will even make it home. That's how bad those cars were. But well, thank you guys for joining us today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and I really hope you have a great rest of your day.